Once upon a time, there lived a young enterprising man called Obinna. Obinna had always been a hustler and a go-getter. He was born and raised in Lagos before his parents sadly passed away in a car accident. He stayed with his uncle who raised him to adulthood. His life experiences taught him earlier on that survival meant hard work, determination, and sometimes playing by rules you weren't taught in school. After being jobless for the longest time, at age 30, he finally landed a job as a personal assistant to a British lady called Margaret Williams, who we are going to be calling Maggie in this story. Maggie was a sharp, no nonsense British lady who was the CEO of a thriving multinational firm based in Texas but has branches in Nigeria and other parts of Africa. Maggie was everything Obinna wasn't. She was polished, privileged, and seemingly untouchable. She had a reputation for being tough, demanding, and fiercely independent. Her personality really scared Obinna, but he was more afraid of being jobless. So he braced up for whatever he would see in the job. Surprisingly, Maggie wasn't as difficult as he expected. Their relationship quickly transcended just work. It all started with small things. Maggie would stay late in the office and Obinna would be the only one around to help her with last minute tasks. She didn't trust anyone else. So slowly, those late nights became less about work and more about small meaningful conversations. Obinna found himself captivated by her stories of life in London, her passion for building her company, and the vulnerability she rarely showed to anyone else. He saw a very different side of her, the side no one else knew. Maggie, too, started noticing Obinna, his loyalty, his physique, and the way he made her feel grounded in the fast paced, chaotic world of business in Lagos State. Despite their cultural differences, there was a connection that grew stronger with each passing day between them. Obinna might not be as exposed as Margaret, but he sure knew the implications of falling in love with his Oyibo boss. He was well aware that falling in love with Maggie was a different kind of problem, a trouble that could ruin his life. His friends often joked about him landing the Oyibo jackpot, but for Obinna, it really wasn't about her wealth or status. It was the deep admiration he had for the woman behind the power. One evening, after an exhausting day of meetings, Maggie invited Obinna to join her for dinner. It wasn't unusual for them to share meals when working late, but something about this night felt different. The conversation was easy, the wine flowed, and before they knew it, the topic of relationship came up. Why don't you have a girlfriend, Obinna? Maggie asked, her blue eyes piercing him with curiosity. Obinna chuckled nervously. How could he begin to explain to his boss, this formidable woman, that he had been avoiding relationships because his heart was tangled up in her? He hesitated in answering the question, but the wine had loosened up his tongue, so he was not that much in control anymore. No, ma, it's not that I don't want to be in a relationship. It's just that I've fallen for someone completely out of my league. Obina replied in a free manner. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean out of your league? She said in an American accent. Obina stared at his plate, his heart pounding. He knew he was about to cross a line, but he couldn't hold it in any longer. Yuma, I'm in love with you, he finally blurted out. The words hung heavy in the air, and for a moment, Obina regretted what he had blurted out. The fear of losing his job for crossing the professional line intensified his anxiety. But Maggie's face remained unreadable, like Obina couldn't really tell what was going on in her mind because she kept staring at him. Then slowly, a small smile tugged at her lips. She finally said a word. Obinna, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into, she said in a British accent. After that dinner, their relationship changed. They started a secret love affair. Maggie's tough personality melted away in private moments, revealing a woman who yearned for connection just as much as everyone else. Obina found himself deeply intertwined in her life, both professionally and personally. He absolutely loved her. Their stolen kisses in the office, the weekends at her secluded villa, every moment was filled with a mix of excitement and fear of the unknown. He is just a common boy. What does he have? What does he know? Who does he have? If all these things causes problem, who is going to save him? Nobody. So he was right to be afraid. But the reality of their situation weighed heavily. He couldn't escape the nagging voice in his head. What if this ends badly? What if the office finds out? Maggie was a powerful woman, and their relationship could jeopardize everything he had worked for. And it was not too long when the office rumors began to fly about Obinna dating Maggie. Obinna found himself avoiding his colleagues like plague more often so that such topic would not even be raised. One day, everything went out of control. What Obinna didn't know was that Maggie had a boyfriend back in the States, an influential and wealthy businessman named Andrew. They had been together for years, though their relationship had grown distant due to their demanding careers. Maggie moving down to Nigeria and Andrew being in the States. The distance was quite much, though they had other impending issues. When Andrew heard rumors of Maggie's affair with her Nigerian personal assistant, his fury was unimaginable. Andrew boarded the first flight to Lagos and arrived unannounced at Maggie's office. His unexpected arrival took her by surprise. He was livid. Andrew confronted Maggie, demanding the truth, and when she admitted the affair, his anger turned towards Obinna. He couldn't do anything to Maggie after all, so he turned to the person he could easily intimidate. Maggie tried to calm him down, but Andrew was too enraged. Obinna heard about the encounter and his return, and he stayed away from the office for a while. Andrew, nevertheless, tracked Obinna down, confronting him outside his apartment that fateful day. The moment he set his eyes on Obinna, he held him by the collar. You think you can steal my woman? Andrew growled, towering over Obinna. You have no idea who you are dealing with. I can destroy you with a single phone call, you lowlife. Obinna, feeling the full weight of the threat, stood his ground. I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Andrew. I am not afraid of you and your power. Whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. But you can't control love. Maggie is her own person. Let her make her choice. If she wants to go with you, she's free to. If she wants to love me, let her be. You know if you come Naija con dey intimidate me. I be correct street boy. Obinna threw in. Andrew withdrew, making a final threat. Stay away from her or you will regret your existence. Despite the intimidation, Obinna refused to back down. He loved Maggie and he wasn't about to be bullied out of her life. If he was going to leave Maggie, Maggie should be the one to tell him that she is no longer interested in their relationship. Otherwise, he pin, they go anywhere. After several failed attempts to get back with Margaret, Andrew flew back to the States and Obinna returned to work, but their love affair dimmed its light a bit. As if that Andrew Wahala was not enough, another one was on the way. It happened that Maggie's company was in the midst of a high stake merger with a rival firm. The pressure was immense and tension were running high. One evening, while Maggie was out of country on businesses, Obinna was approached by a senior executive at that rivalry company. The name of this executive is Mr. Akin. The man was sly and calculating. He knew about Obinna and Maggie's relationship and he thought to wield it against him. What he needed from Obinna was an information about Maggie, and that information they were going to use against Maggie's company and they will win the bid. So he approached Obinna and said to him, if you give us this information on Maggie's dealings, I can make sure you rise in your company. You will never have to struggle again. Mr. King offered him a check of 10 million naira. Obinna was torn. The money, it will really better his life and that of his old uncle. It was tempting, but betraying Maggie was the last thing in his mind. The boy was a completely finished man. He thought nothing else but Maggie. He pushed the envelope back, his heart racing. He kept thinking to himself, was he making a mistake? But this was not just about Maggie being in a relationship with him or not. It was also about integrity and truth. Exposing such information to rival company is against their work ethics. I'm not for sale, Obina replied firmly, standing up to leave. Mr. King's voice turned cold. Look at this lover boy that I'm trying to help. You are making a huge mistake, young man. Obina, people like Maggie don't care about you. She will toss you aside the moment you are no longer useful to her. Oh, you think she loves you? Mumu. Obina left, feeling very shaken. The words of Mr. Akin kept ringing in his head. And that night, all he needed was to hear Maggie's voice, so all the sacrifices would be worth it. He desperately tried to call Maggie, but she didn't answer, and for the next few days, she remained distant, buried in the chaos of the merger. Doubt began to creep in. Was the executive right? Was Mr. King right? Was Maggie just using him? When Maggie finally returned, she was different. She was distracted and cold, as if the walls she had let down for Obinna were now reinforced and built back up. Obinna confronted her, his heart aching with confusion and fear. Miss Margaret, what's going on? Why are you pushing me away? He said. She looked at him with tired eyes. Obinna, I'm under a lot of pressure. The merger, the board, the bid, they're watching everything I do. We can't continue this. It's too risky, she said in her British accent. Obina felt like his heart had been ripped out of his chest. So that's it? That's just it. After everything, you're just going to throw me away like that. So that's it. Maggie's voice waved, but she held firm. You know I care about you, Obina. But we both knew that this couldn't last. I've written to the HR to transfer you to another department, so this wouldn't be any harder for you. The breakup devastated Obinna. He threw himself into his work, no longer as her personal assistant, but nothing could fill the void Maggie had left. The office buzzed with news of the successful merger and bid, and Maggie's star continued to rise, but Obinna couldn't shake the feeling that he had been used. Months passed, and Obinna tried to move on, but Maggie's presence lingered in every corner of his life. Then one day, Maggie unexpectedly showed up at his apartment. She looked worn, vulnerable, and for the first time, Obinna saw the cracks in her perfect facade. She rushed over to Obinna. Immediately he opened the door, hugged him, and said, I made a mistake. Her voice filled with regret. I was scared, Obinna. Scared of what I felt for you. Scared of what loving you would cost me. Obina stood there, torn between the love he felt for her and the pain she had caused him. And now, do you still love me? Obina asked. Maggie took another step closer, tears in her eyes. I don't care about the risk anymore. I just want you, she said. Obina's heart raced. He had a choice: forgive her and risk everything again, or walk away and protect himself from the pain. After a long pause, he sighed, pulling her into his arms. You see this wahala, eh? I'm ready for her, he said in pidgin English, hugging Margaret very tight. And just like that, they decided to face the challenges together, knowing that love, just like life, is never without its risk. But for Obina, loving Margaret Williams was worth every bit of the Wahala Pro Max. Did you enjoy this story? Kindly click the subscribe button, turn on your post notification bell so you'll be the first to know when another amazing story is made available. Like and share. Tell us what you think about this story in the comment section. Till the next story lovers, enjoy your day. Bye.